Hey everybody, it's Cam from the Nerd Book Review. Today I want to talk about the beginning of the Cradle series by Will Wight. Unsold and Soulsmith are the first two books. I listened to both of them last week, back to back. Luckily, there was a big Audible sale, so I was able to get the first two books for just a couple of dollars a piece. I've waited a long time to start this series. Of course, it is one of the most famous, one of the best-selling progression cultivation fantasy series of all time. One of the earlier ones, Will Wight must have sold his soul to the devil. He wrote this series right out of college when he was just in his early 20s, way back what feels like the dark ages of lit RPG, cultivation, progression, fantasy, all that stuff. Which even though it's only 10 years ago or so now. But these first two books, I have waited a long time because they're pretty short compared to an awful lot of these, series, especially like the lit RPG. A lot of them are, 800-900 pages long, started off on Royal Road or are being written on authors' Patreon pages. Of course, Will Wight did not do any of these on Patreon. He was an early, I guess not early really, because I've read some stuff like the Silo series by Hugh Howey, which, probably came 10 years before this. But he got really big off of Kindle Unlimited. It's obviously a way that quite a few authors have done. It's probably not the way that most progression or RPG authors do these days. But when he put it out, I'm not sure how big of a deal those were. Something I probably ought to look into here pretty shortly. But wrote and finished the 12-book Cradle series now. Once again, I've waited for a long time because of how short they are. 8-9 hours. I think the second one's 12. Because of that, I just haven't felt like I really wanted to, use a credit, one of my Audible credits, on something that didn't even take me a full work day to finish. I know that might sound a little bit strange to some of you. But when I'm sitting in a tractor, like legitimately sitting in a tractor for 10 to 14 hours a day, you have obviously a lot of time to read or listen. If you've watched any of my other videos, one of these days I'll actually record and take the time to do the sound editing of a video while I'm sitting in my tractor. But I mean, I'm literally moving a quarter of a mile an hour. So I can listen to an audiobook for, seriously all day long. And one of these, Unsold wouldn't make it through an entire day for me. So I just haven't felt like I wanted to spend basically the money for the Audible credit. Once they were on sale, I did. And you know what? I think it took me most of the first book of Unsold before I really saw what, millions of other people have seen. When we first meet Lyndon, he is called Unsold. He doesn't have an affinity for one of the paths. And so, the valley that he's in and his family, the huge clan, decides that he's not worth spending resources on. And because of that, he's sniveling. He is in a society where you have to respect your elders. He could have been killed, and basically the worst that would have happened is he would have had to pay a fine. All in all, he kind of has, a pretty crappy early life. I guess, he's still treated all right by his direct family. He still has his own house and things like that, right? So it's not like he's, out in the wilderness and has been cast off by his clan. But he definitely doesn't have a life where, he has any respect, or he is the kind of person that can stand up to anybody at all. I mean, basically, an 8-year-old has a good chance of having being more powerful than he is in terms of, how much of his chi and how much that he's able to use. I got to be honest, if this book had been like 15 hours long and 10 or 12 of it had been Lyndon basically, kowtowing to everybody else and being a subservient and, just telling everybody he's sorry, I probably would have stopped before I got to the end of the book. And I think that that's something that is lucky in my case, that the series, or that each book, was shorter, especially this first one, because I think that about the 5 or 6 hours that I actually, listened to him snivel and, say he's sorry for this one is sorry, was about all I could handle. And then the book started to actually get good. And then by the time we start off with Soulsmith in book 2, once he's with Yaren, and we meet Ethan at some point, in there, and we get to see just how powerful he is. I think I liked book 2 quite a bit more. I mean, if we're talking about, rankings on the first book, I don't know if I would give it much higher than say a 6 or a 6.5. But by book 2, I definitely jumped way up to say an 8 probably, right? I still don't think the series is something that, is going to force me to buy more books until I find them on sale. But I absolutely will, buy more books once I find them on sale. I know that this is based off of the Neruda manga series, and that was the inspiration, at least. I mean, it's not based on it, but that's the inspiration. And so I get why so many people who are anime fans really were a big fan of this series. I think that there's obviously some pretty big perks over a hardcore lit RPG where we don't have to sit there and listen to him talk about his stats too often. We don't have to hear titles and things like that, at least in these first 2 books. That's certainly a positive. I know that at times, even books like Defiance of the Fall that I really liked, they had sometimes where I just got tired of listening to, the list of titles and the stats and all that kind of stuff, and I would just skip ahead. I think it's something that, I probably could have read this one a whole lot better than I could have read the others. Another thing is the writing quality, is definitely much, much higher than with some of these, 800-900 page lit RPG books that are getting put out, 2 books a year. When an author's putting out, 1,500 to 3,000 pages, a chapter or 2 every single week, sometimes more, then obviously the writing quality is going to suffer. And these, were published under a much more normal timeline, I guess, for Kindle Unlimited. Some of these authors are still putting out these Kindle Unlimited books pretty fast, and it 12 books. I didn't actually look at see when it was 2014 till 2020ish. So still a couple books a year, but the writing skill level was clearly much, much better in these first 2 Cradle books than in most of the lit RPG that I've so far read. Will Wight himself, everything that I've read about him is that he's a super cool guy. People, enjoy interacting with him at conventions. I made the joke about selling his soul that he put out that series, the first series before Cradle, way back while he was still in college and in grad school. And, he sold millions of copies. He's been able to be a full-time author his entire life, been able to be self-published this entire time. Obviously, that's something that is pretty awesome. For me as someone who wants to read indie stuff primarily, that's definitely the kind of success story that you hope that authors that you enjoy are able to have. And it's a funny one, too, thinking about that, is that I don't know that I ever really thought about Will Wight as being indie before, reading a little bit about him, because his series is so big and he sold, millions of copies of his books. And I sat there and I thought, well, you know what? He still is indie. He's still self-published. So, that's the kind of thing that you just have to tip your hat to and say that, maybe the Indie Fanatics, Facebook group, I'd have to even ask them if they still, if they would even want me to post my video on that, right? But kind of like Hugh Howey, just a shining example of how Kindle Unlimited can work for you if that's a route you want to go. I know that these days, more lit RPG and progression cultivation fantasy fans tend to go with the Patreon route as far as their writing, and some of them, are making millions of dollars a year, those, top 5 or 6. But look at the Cradle series. The first book, Unsold, has, over 40,000 reviews on Goodreads. So clearly these books are doing something right. The first couple, though, like I said, I enjoyed them. I saw where the spark was coming from, but I don't know that I would have, if I would have had to pay for them to start off with and they hadn't been a Kindle Unlimited kind of deal, or in my case, getting them, cheaper, that I would have loved those first 2 books because of that. But book 2 is certainly much, much better, and I really enjoyed the story a whole lot more. That first book, man, it was good. Like I said, it's a good thing it was shorter because it was just kind of getting obnoxious having to listen to him just, scrape and bow and kowtow all the time. I think that what I'm going to do for, moving forward is I'm going to wait for the next Audible sale, and then I will, buy some more of them that way. But I think that because the not having to deal with all of the stats stuff, here in the next couple months, I'll probably try to read the third book, actually, physically read it, since they are still on Kindle Unlimited. And I think that because I don't have to deal with all of the stats and titles, that, this will be something that I would pretty easily be able to read. I think that this is also, between this one and Beware of Chicken, that I also bought on the Audible sale when they were just a couple bucks a piece, I've realized that as a general rule, while I like lit RPG, and Dungeon Crawler Carl is at this point like right up there of top 2 or 3 favorite series of any genre for me, I think that I am a bigger fan of the cultivation fantasy than I am of the true lit RPG. I like, dealing with them as they level up, but not having to deal with like a whole bunch of individual stats. Sometimes I think that if I had liked the He Who Fights with Monsters more, that one had a little bit less of that and more of the cultivation progression style while still having that stats. If I'd have liked Jason more, then I think I would have been a fan of like that style where we didn't have to deal with it constantly, like Defiance of the Fall or something like that. But I think that Cradle has really cemented that I'm a bigger cultivation fan. The same thing, like I said, now Beware of Chicken that I'm also listening to and really, really enjoying. But all in all, I see glimpses of, why the Cradle series got so big. I did make a comment on Facebook in the RPG group, and got lots of the first couple books are just fine, and then about book 4 is where things really take off. And I get that, especially with the Kindle Unlimited thing, going on early on, that was probably the kind of thing where you get through those first couple of books, which are only good. And then, once the author really hits their stride, then that's when things become a phenomenon like Cradle did. I've definitely read some other series on Kindle Unlimited that I didn't think were anywhere near as good, and just kept going because when you're just paying that one monthly fee, sometimes you're going to read books and give books more of a shot too. I don't know that if I would had bought this, the first book on its own and paid full price, that I would have been quite so forgiving early on. I'd say I did this 10 years ago. But when you just pay the one fee for the monthly fee, then you get, that second, third, fourth books. And then, if by the fourth book there are, a bunch of them that people are giving 10 out of 10s, then you see where that happens. I think at this point I'm probably just rambling and saying the same things over and over again. But my final thoughts are that I enjoyed the books. I certainly, based off of book 1, wouldn't have considered this, thought that it was going to be quite the series that it's becoming. But the last couple hours of that audiobook, things got a whole lot better. And then book 2 is a lot more fun than book 1 for me, and I really did enjoy book 2. Probably like I said, that 8.5 out of 10. Certainly not that 9 or 10 out of 10 range. But I will probably, like I said, read book 3, and then we'll see where we go from there. If I enjoy reading them, they're 300-400 page books, so they're not going to take me more than a day or two. And I'll probably read at least the next 3 books before I put out an update of how I feel about the series and where we're going. All right. I hope you guys are enjoying your reading and have a great time. Thanks. Bye.